the northern realm, a chilling scene unfolded as a vast swarm of undead creatures launched a relentless assault on a human outpost. Driven by a dark and inexorable will, these undead were not mere shambling corpses, but a formidable army raised and commanded by the Necromancer, Stephen Lestat. His creation, a bone fortress equipped with the latest advancements in gene manipulation and biological science, stood as a testament to his commitment to winning the divine game for Necros. The human outpost, positioned strategically at the edge of the northern realm, was initially capable of holding its own against smaller skirmishes. However, faced with the overwhelming numbers of the undead, their defenses began to falter. The undead, enhanced through unique gene therapy that fortified their rotting bodies and endowed them with unnatural endurance, surged forward in waves of decaying flesh and bone. Stephen Lestat's enhancements allowed the undead to withstand and adapt to the lethal combat techniques employed by the other factions. The Lycans, known for their superior strength, agility, and ferocity, posed a significant threat with their ability to tear through the undead ranks in close combat. Meanwhile, the Elders, masters of shadow manipulation, had demonstrated their ability to annihilate large numbers of the undead from a distance, using the dark arts to sap the life force from their foes. Undeterred, Lestat worked tirelessly in his fortress, his mind a whirlwind of scientific and necromantic knowledge. He pledged to devise a strategy that would not only counter the physical prowess of the Lycans, but also neutralize the mystical threats posed by the Elders. His research focused on further enhancing the physiological traits of his undead, increasing their resilience against physical attacks, and developing resistance to magical energies. As the outpost's final defenses crumbled, the undead army swelled with newly claimed souls, each fallen defender rising again to join the ranks of Necros's army. This macabre reinforcement strategy was gruesome yet effective, ensuring that with every battle, regardless of the initial outcome, the undead army grew ever larger and more formidable. The fall of the human outpost marked a grim beginning to the unfolding saga in the Northern Realm, signaling a new era of darkness as Stephen Lestat's undead horde prepared to march forth, a growing threat not just to the Lycans and the Elders, but to all who dared stand in their way in this God-ordained game. As night descended, blanketing the sky in a shroud of impenetrable darkness, the small village to the south succumbed to a deep, unsuspecting sleep. Having spent their day toiling in the fields, bartering goods, and fortifying their modest homes, townsfolk settled into their beds, their exhaustion earning them a profound, yet tragically vulnerable, rest. Unknown to the slumbering villagers, shadows began to gather with sinister intent, swirling around the edges of the town like dark spectres at a somber feast. These shadows, silent and formless, slipped through open windows and under door cracks, invading the homes that housed of the unsuspecting. Once inside, the dark forms transformed. From the nebulous mist emerged decrepit figures, old, parasitic, and sickly. They were like creatures resurrected from the tomb and the grave, their appearances ghastly, and their intentions malevolent. These were the Elders, ancient beings, with a thirst not just for blood, but for the very essence of life. As the village lay in helpless slumber, the Elders began their grim banquet. They moved from bed to bed, their forms hunched and grotesque, gorging on the townsfolk. With each life taken, the air grew colder, the shadows deeper. The Elders' ancient magic, dark and ruthless, ensured that those who perished did not rest in peace, but rose again, their eyes hollow, their loyalty forcibly bound to their new sinister lineage. By dawn, the village had transformed completely. Where once there was laughter and life, now stood only the silent ranks of newly turned Elders, their faces pale and haunted under the waning moon. Eldur, the leader of this macabre legion, watched over the scene with a grim satisfaction. His smile was a twisted curl of his lips, a confident arrogance born from unwavering loyalty to his god. To him, this was not merely a victory, but a necessary step towards dominance in the divine game set by the gods. This dark conquest, under the cover of night, not only bolstered the strength of the elders, but also served as a chilling reminder of their reach and the merciless nature of their campaign to win the ultimate power for their god. To the east, nestled amidst a burgeoning forest, stood a small, scientific outpost, a beacon of human ingenuity and determination. Here, dedicated researchers worked tirelessly, advancing industries in science and technology to ensure their community could not only survive, but thrive in this harsh, supernatural-laden world. The day had been like any other, filled with the hum of machinery and the clatter of keyboards, until a deep, terrifying howl shattered the calm. It was primal, ancient, a sound that spoke of wildness and untamed fury. Instantly, the alarm blared throughout the outpost, a piercing siren that set every heart pounding with dread. The inhabitants scrambled, gathering essential belongings as they prepared to flee. Among them, a solitary figure in a chrome mask, recently arrived from afar, moved with an eerie calmness. He entered the science lab, his voice resolute as he issued a stark warning. Leave now, or be torn to shreds by the Lycans. Outside, the chaos was palpable as the Lycans descended upon the outpost with terrifying speed and ferocity. Their eyes glowed with a predatory light as they leapt over barriers and burst through doors. The humans' desperate sprint for safety was futile. The werewolves were simply too swift, too relentless. Screams filled the air, mingled with the snarls and growls of the Lycans attacking. The terror of facing these beasts was unlike any other. Muscles rippling under moonlit fur, fangs bared in savage delight. One by one, the outpost defenders fell, only to rise again, their bodies undergoing a horrific transformation. The ancient curse of lycanthropy took hold, weaving its dark magic through their veins, reshaping them into the very monsters they feared. Inside the lab, as chaos reigned outside, the man in the chrome mask sat alone, an aura of inevitability about him. When the Alpha Lycan burst through the door, its eyes alight with a brutal intent, it lunged. But in a moment laden with inexplicable recognition, the man removed his mask, revealing his face. Something deep within the Alpha stirred, a recognition, or perhaps a command from a past long buried. It stopped mid-attack, its fierce momentum halted as if by an invisible force. With a huge commanding roar, it signaled the other Lycans. The message was clear and filled with an authority that brooked no dissent. Leave this place and never return. The other Lycans retreated, disappearing into the forest as swiftly as they had arrived. The man in the chrome mask calmly replaced his mask and spoke into the lingering silence, his voice resonating with a new, undisputed command. From now on, this place will be known as Outpost Winter. This declaration marked the outpost not just as a site of scientific endeavor, but as a domain under the protection of a man whose very presence could sway the instincts of the primal and the supernatural. In the newly christened Outpost Winter, Simon Winter had indeed chosen his location with precision. The laboratory, fortified and secluded, was laden with equipment and resources essential for his monumental task. Here, he intended to recreate his weapon, a device perhaps capable of turning the tides in the supernatural struggle enveloping this world. Meanwhile, far to the west, in a bustling human stronghold, life thrived under the vigilant leadership of Commander Lewis and Eleanor. This stronghold, a fortified beacon of human resilience and ingenuity, bustled with activity. Its walls, reinforced with salvage technology and ancient craftsmanship, housed a community determined to survive against all odds. Within this community, Captain Harris and Captain Knox found themselves working closely together. Both were skilled leaders, adept in tactical defense and community organization, yet neither held any recollection of past conflicts or battles. To them, their life within the stronghold's walls was all they had ever known, and their dedication to its people was unwavering. As reports of attacks by supernatural factions began filtering in, the atmosphere within the stronghold grew tense. Scouts and messengers brought news of encroaching dangers, undead hordes pushing from the north, and shadowy figures haunting the southern borders. Each report solidified the need for vigilance and preparedness, traits that both Harris and Knox exemplified in their daily duties. Commander Lewis, a seasoned leader with a strategic mind, worked alongside Elena, whose strength and charisma rallied the stronghold's inhabitants. Together, they orchestrated defenses and planned counter-strategies, yet like Harris and Knox, their memories were curiously confined to their lives within the stronghold. The past, with its potential insights into enemies and alliances, remained veiled in mystery, leaving them to rely solely on the present challenges and the immediate need to protect their home. Their shared lack of historical context did not hinder their leadership. Rather, it instilled a pure focus on survival and prosperity under the current circumstances. This peculiar amnesia, whether a consequence of the gods' manipulation in this crafted realm or a side effect of their divine game, meant that each leader approached the supernatural threats with a fresh perspective, unburdened by the history of betrayals or alliances that might have shaped their strategies differently. As the stronghold fortified its defenses, the leaders remained vigilant, their lives intertwined with the fate of their community, standing as the last bastion of human resilience in a world dominated by ancient curses and celestial games. In a strategically pivotal yet unassuming location at the heart of the map, a small outpost buzzed with activity under the watchful eyes of Alex and Marco. Despite their mysterious amnesia concerning anything prior to this alternate reality, the pair operated with the seamless coordination of long-standing teammates. Their primary focus was on bolstering defenses and devising robust strategies to safeguard their small community against any potential threats. Nina, the camp leader, dedicated herself tirelessly to managing the camp's daily operations and meeting the needs of its inhabitants. Her leadership was a beacon of stability, guiding the camp through uncertain times. Unbeknownst to them, their outpost sat at the very center of the map, making it an unwitting focal point for all three supernatural factions. Meanwhile, in the dark and imposing castle of the Elders, Eldur and Serana engaged in a strategic dialogue. Their voices echoed through the cold stone halls, carrying plans of manipulation and survival. We must not engage the Lycan directly. Their unique abilities are the deadliest to us. Eldur cautioned with a grave tone, the weight of their predicament clear in his expression. Serana nodded in agreement, her mind racing with tactics. There is a human camp, yet untouched, positioned between the two factions. We need to lead them both there, she proposed, her voice a whisper of intrigue and urgency. Eldur contemplated, then added, "If we attack this camp and cause a commotion, hopefully they will come to claim it for themselves. It could serve as bait to draw both the Lycan and the Undead into conflict." "We have no silver," Serana interjected, a note of caution in her voice. "And no doubt, These Lycan are true blood, lethal to us. We must have them fight the undead first, and try to stop them both from bolstering their numbers." Eldur nodded, his eyes narrowing as he devised the next phase of their plan. "Yes, while they fight, we need to be the ones recruiting to our kin. The undead are walking shells devoid of real brains, and the Lycan are mere wild animals. We, on the other hand, are superior intellectually," he asserted confidently. With a strategic grin, Eldur gave a subtle nod, a non-verbal command that set their cunning plan into motion. This maneuver was designed not just to survive, but to provoke a conflict that would ideally weaken their adversaries, allowing the Elders to capitalize on the chaos and recruit more to their ranks. The stakes were high, and in the game of gods and monsters, the Elders were playing a dangerous but potentially rewarding hand. Back at Outpost Winter, Simon Winter was on the verge of completing his most ambitious project yet, a weapon of his own design, uniquely intertwined with his superior intellect. As he made the final adjustments to the device, his thoughts drifted to its origins and the circumstances that surrounded its necessity. He had possessed this weapon before the collapse of reality, a testament to his genius that not even the gods could replicate in this new world they had crafted. The weapon, an intricate device capable of manipulating electromagnetic brainwaves and functions, was linked directly to Winter's ever-evolving intellect. By tests on himself initially, Winter had managed to increase his brain usage from the typical 10% to an astonishing 30%, and still climbing. This enhanced cerebral capacity not only amplified his intellectual abilities, but also allowed him to retain and recall experiences from before the reality collapse, providing him with insights and memories that others had lost. Working tirelessly in his lab, Winter made a crucial adjustment to the weapon. This modification was subtle, yet significant, tailored to a specific phase of the plan he was formulating, a strategy so complex and intricate that only a mind as advanced as his could conceive and hope to execute it successfully. Winter's plan, shrouded in secrecy, was designed not merely to participate in the supernatural conflicts, but to pivot the balance of power entirely. With his weapon nearly complete, he was poised to step into the fray, not just as a participant, but as a formidable architect of the new reality's future. His actions, driven by a mix of personal motives and the broader aim of human preservation, were about to introduce a new element to the divine game, one that could potentially alter the course of this supernatural war. In a strategic ploy to incite conflict between the Lycans and the Undead, Serana led a team of elders on a covert assault on a crucial outpost situated between the two enemy strongholds. Employing their mastery of shadow manipulation, they deliberately chose paths that would alert their adversaries, moving through territories where the Lycans could sense their dark energy and where the Undead could glimpse their shadowy forms. The intent was clear: provoke both factions into converging upon the outpost, thereby weakening them in the ensuing conflict. Reacting to the Elder's movements, the Necromancer swiftly commanded a legion of his most recently enhanced undead, designed with a higher resistance to the shadow powers of the Elders, to march on the outpost and repel the vampire-led assault. Simultaneously, the Alpha Lycan, sensing the corrupt presence of the Elders, unleashed a ferocious howl, rallying a pack of true-blood Lycans to charge towards the impending battle. The outpost, managed by a woman named Rebecca, was suddenly under siege. Shadowy figures flickered at the periphery, the ground trembled under the march of undead legions, and the air was rent by the chilling howls of Lycans. Faced with the imminent collision of three supernatural forces, Rebecca issued orders for her guards to hold their positions, yet remained prepared for a swift evacuation if necessary. As the undead forces came into view, the elders executed their final part of the plan. They retreated, leaving the Lycans and undead to clash ferociously over the outpost. This retreat was not a sign of defeat, but a strategic withdrawal to redirect their focus toward a smaller, yet intriguingly significant target, an unclaimed outpost still operational and rumoured to hold valuable scientific assets. Two elders slipped into this smaller outpost, using their shadow forms to remain unseen. However, as they entered the main building, they were suddenly trapped by a strange, encompassing light. Simon Winter, revealing himself, addressed the court elders with a mix of disappointment and scientific curiosity. "Clumsy and late," Winter remarked coolly. "I will need to experiment on you. I'm afraid I'm going to need your heads." As one of the elders attempted a desperate escape, the light intensified, searing him with pain as he recoiled back into the room. "Don't bother," Winter continued, his voice calm and factual. "That light is a mix of ultraviolet and infrared, set to the exact spectrum as sunlight, all part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Simple really, though I doubt your insect-like intellect would understand." This encounter starkly highlighted the disparity in intellectual prowess between Winter and the elders. Despite their heightened intellect and centuries of accumulated knowledge, they were fundamentally outmatched by Winter's superior cognitive abilities, which continued to expand exponentially. His preparation and strategic use of technology not only neutralized the physical threat of the elders, but also positioned him as a formidable player in the ongoing supernatural game, one step ahead in crafting the future of this reality. The battle at the outpost was a spectacle of primal fury and undead resilience, as the Lycans, led by their instinctual ferocity, clashed with the undead, each enhanced with the Necromancer's dark genetic alterations. The air was filled with the clash of bone against flesh and the snarls of wolves. The undead, though not possessing the wild agility or the raw physical power of the Lycans, were formidable due to their sheer numbers and the unnatural enhancements that granted them increased resistance and strength. They moved with a disturbing, eerie coordination, their eyes devoid of life yet burning with a relentless drive to destroy. Each undead soldier was a product of the Necromancer's intricate knowledge of death and decay, crafted to be a tough opponent against the natural prowess of the Lycans. However, the Lycans' superior might eventually turn the tide. Their movements were swift and brutal, leaping, tearing and rending with their enhanced claws and teeth. The battle was a blur of motion, with the Lycans weaving through the ranks of undead, each strike calculated to be lethal. Their howls pierced the night, a chilling soundtrack to the carnage unfolding. In the ferocious melee, the Lycans demonstrated their dominance, their pack mentality, ensuring they fought with a unity and savagery that overwhelmed their foes. For every Lycan that fell, scores of undead were torn apart, their reanimated bodies unable to regenerate fast enough to withstand the onslaught. Meanwhile, the human inhabitants of the outpost, led by Rebecca, faced a dire situation. With the battle raging fiercely around them and casualties mounting, Rebecca made the hard decision to evacuate. Her voice was firm as she rallied a handful of survivors. "We need to retreat to the nearest safe place." The urgency of the situation was palpable, the danger imminent, and her leadership critical in steering her group away from the battlefield. As they fled, the tragic reality of their situation became evident. Some of the outpost defenders, humans who had fought bravely against the encroaching enemies, had fallen during the battle. Now, under the eerie glow of the moon, the curse of the Lycans began to take hold on them. Those who had been bitten and left for dead rose again, their features contorting in agony as the transformation gripped their bodies. The curse spread through their veins like wildfire, reshaping them into the very beasts they had just been fighting against. The air was thick with despair and transformation as Rebecca and her surviving group made their escape, the sounds of the ongoing battle fading into the distance, replaced by the heavy, ragged breaths of those desperate to survive another night in this brutal, supernatural realm after the ferocious battle. The outpost was nothing more than a smouldering ruin, the ground strewn with the twisted and broken bodies of the undead. Amidst the devastation, a solitary figure roamed, his gaze cold and calculating as he surveyed the aftermath of the conflict. The Necromancer, undeterred by the loss, muttered with a tone of irritation mixed with anticipation. Annoying, but expected. At his command, 2 large undead servants lumbered into the area, pushing a cart that spilled a greenish goo across the blood-soaked earth. This substance, a concoction born from the Necromancer's relentless genetic and biological experiments, seeped into the remains of the fallen undead. Almost immediately, the dead began to shake and convulse violently. Some bodies grotesquely bonded together, forming larger, more formidable creatures, while others rose anew, ready to fight again. The Necromancer watched with grim satisfaction, proclaiming, "You can't kill the dead. We shall have to find a way to strengthen you against these mongrels." Meanwhile, back at Outpost Winter, the atmosphere was starkly different. 2 severed heads lay on Simon Winter's experimental table, subjects of his latest scientific inquiry. "Of course," Winter mused aloud, his voice echoing slightly in the sterile lab. "It's not magic or darkness, it's just science. I can see how your brains are able to convert your molecular structure into shadows." He was close to a breakthrough, one that could potentially alter the dynamics of power among the supernatural factions. "I will just need to add this to my calculations, and I will be ready," he declared, his confidence in his intellectual prowess evident. Back at the Elder's dark castle, Eldur and Serana discussed the fate of their missing comrades with growing concern. "They should be back by now, unless they were attacked," Serana noted, her voice tinged with unease. Eldur, his expression grave, responded, "Something about that place. Something is not right. We shall have to keep a close eye on it." The disappearance of their scouts at a seemingly insignificant scientific outpost hinted at a greater threat than they had anticipated. End of episode 1. As the shadows lengthen and the first episode draws to a close, the stage is set for deeper intrigues and conflicts. The Necromancer's undead army is evolving, becoming ever more formidable through grotesque rebirths. Simon Winter, with his cutting-edge scientific methods, edges closer to unlocking secrets that could shift the very foundations of supernatural power. Meanwhile, Eldur and Serana sense an ominous disturbance tied to Outpost Winter, a place that might hold more significance than any had guessed. As the factions regroup and rearm, the question looms: what new alliances and betrayals will emerge as each leader seeks to assert their dominance in this fractured realm? Episode 2 promises a continuation of this intricate dance of power, where science and the supernatural collide with unpredictable consequences. The game is far from over, and the real battle may have just begun.